All right, guys, here we are. New update on the TradePilot V3. I want to go through everything what's new very briefly, explain to you how the new features work, and also the new licensing system. So how you can set up basically the new license. So basically, very briefly, what is new? So we have a new licensing system, as I said. With that comes also a new URL that you need to add to the web request. Well, it is not really a feature, but I wanted to include it so that everyone knows, because I know a lot of people forget about the smaller things. Then we have a new trade direction filter. We have a new averaging filter, averaging system. Then we have a equity stop loss. We have a new limit order system, valid range for entry signal filter. We have the hedging system, which came from the beta V2. And then we have also a new double moving average filter or system for entry signal and also for exit signal. So very briefly, for the new license, for the URL that you need to add now, you go to tools, then you go to options, and then you basically add this link here, which you can also find from the setup guide. I also added the link there. You just click on allow web requests for listed URL, and then you add this link and you click on OK. This we want to leave it on. Okay. After that, you basically just need to insert your old license here. If you're a new customer, you will get the new license as usual, and then just put it here, insert it here, and then it will work. So as I said, all these features, the new features, you can see them here in the settings. So we have the new trade direction filter. Now you can basically decide if you want to take only buys, only sells, or if you want to trade as usual with both of them on. So buys and sells. We have this new averaging system, which I will go a little bit deeper later on. I will show you based on a screenshot on an example how this works. This is everything as the old one. This is new, equity stop loss in percent of balance. This only works with the averaging system. So I will also explain this later on. This is new, use limit orders, true or false. I will also explain you based on an example how this works. These three settings come with the limit orders usage. So if this is true, then it will consider these three settings here. We have this new setting, which is valid range for entry signal. I will also explain it a little bit better based on an example. We have the hedging system, which I already explained in a older video for the beta testers, which is just simply a hedging system where it takes a counter trade if the trade doesn't go in the way we want it to. So if it takes a buy and then it reverses, it creates a wick, then it takes a sell if this wick rejection is bigger than basically this value here. So minimum wick for a hedge entry, you have a wick of, let's say, 10 pips. If this is true, the candle closes and it creates a 10 pips wick, it will take a sell basically, or the counter trade of the one you originally had. And this is also for the time frames you want it to scan. So a new filter, a new setting is this moving average. Basically, the thought process behind it is to filter out some of the counter trend trades. And when we have a good trade, we also want to exit it as soon as possible. As soon as the trend reverses. So you can select either to use the moving averages for the exit of the trade or for the entry, or both, or neither, obviously. And here we have the moving average settings. So we want a slower one and a faster one. Time frame, you can select it. And also the moving average type, which you can select between simple, exponential, smooth, and linear weighted. Here are the hedge trading stop loss settings. This is nothing new, trading stop losses, and this is everything the same. So quickly, I would like to explain the main new features. So the averaging, all right. So basically, the averaging is just a sort of grid system. It's not a blind grid where, with like the most of the bots, they just like, okay, they have one valid entry, but then it just average out based on how much the market moves, and you have just some blind entries, which is not what we want to achieve. It's still a sort of grid system, but it's a little bit smarter, and it only takes the normal valid signals that the bot would take and not just random ones. So basically, in this example, you could see that it took a buy, but it went completely in the opposite direction. Here it came up very close. It almost closed, I think, but it didn't meet the exit criteria. And then the market just went down, straight down. Then I think this was already the day after. So we still had this buy open. We basically are not using, in this case, the stop loss. We had first a sell signal. So it just took normally the sell signal, took profit here. But then at the same time, it also had a new buy signal. And what it did is basically it took this second buy and then it basically waited until these two positions were averaged out and were in profit. And at this point, it just basically closed both buys in profit. So it will still continue to take the counter trades, so the sells in this case. And if there is a buy, it will just stack the buys until the buy chain is closed. So here, what you need to watch out is obviously this can go a little bit in the wrong direction. It can get risky, but as many people are still trading on live accounts and they are fine with having like a certain amount of drawdown based on like the return it gives, it's still useful to use the averaging system. So you basically have a more constant return without having those losing streaks, which many people don't like. So this is really just up to preferences. Some people chose the TradePilot basically because it didn't have such systems, and that's completely okay. It makes sense, and we will still continue to trade like that. But it was just to give another option for the people that were okay with these type of systems. And based on my back tests, it was really performing well. It didn't have huge drawdowns, so it really had, yeah, really good entries. It averaged out pretty quickly, so you don't have very long drawdown periods. And so it just made sense to include it if someone wants to use it. So this is obviously not a must, but it's pretty nice. So I personally like it, and I'm using it on my accounts. You just need to, or obviously you need to account for the higher drawdowns, the higher risk that you're running. But that's why we included also the equity stop loss. So basically, by risking 1% per trade, I don't want to lose, let's say, 10% or more than 10% of my account. So in the equity stop loss, I will just input 10%, for example. Then if it really goes against everything, it will just close out at 10% loss. And I'm fine with that. But you don't need to use it. You can still leave it on false and just continue trading as usual. Coming to the limit orders feature, so this was basically Tim's idea. The thought process behind it was, I think it was made of two parts. So the first one was to avoid big slippage when entering at market. And the second one was to have some improved entries, because what he had observed by looking at how the EA trades is that very often when the EA enters a trade, it has a valid signal, it very quickly makes a small reversal and then it continues down with the trade direction. So what we wanted to take advantage of was basically this small movement here. So we have, for example, here a sell signal. it breaks down, it has this breakout to the downside, but then it reverses up. Now in this case, I made a little bit a extreme example with the sell limit. It was placed much above, but you could place it to like 5 to 10 pips above, and it takes basically the sell a little bit higher. So when it continues down with the original trade direction, we have a better entry, less drawdown, and probably also bigger profit if we increase the trailing stop loss feature, the trigger, sorry. So here, what my advice is to go into the strategy tester and test it out for yourself, see how it works, see how the system is developed, and then you can get a feel out of it. From our backtest, it was pretty good. It performed well. It obviously takes a little bit less trades than usual, so you will basically have less trades. But what you can do is improve a lot the risk to reward ratio, and that is something that is really nice actually. So this is again, I think, something that comes down to personal preference. You can use it, but you don't have to. If you want to test out something new, you want the improved risk to reward ratio, you want better entries, but are okay with less trades, then you could use it probably. Then again, there it depends what your settings for the limit orders are. For example, some tests we made are the limit order distance is 5 pips. So basically, when you have the sell signal here, it will place the sell limit 5 pips above. It will take almost all of the trades. Yeah, almost all. And then you can have the delete limit or distance. So you have the valid signal. It places the sell limit above, and then it just goes down into your original trade direction. After 15 pips, it will delete this sell limit because we don't want to leave it there if it goes down like 100 pips and then comes up again. So that would not make a lot of sense because the entry is not valid anymore. So yeah, this is basically the limit orders. I hope I could explain it clearly enough. But as I said, I think it's better for you to understand if you go into the strategy tester yourself and just see how it works in the visual tester. If you don't know how that works, maybe let me show you very quickly. So you go to view here. If it wouldn't lag this much. Right here, strategy tester. Yes. Yeah, so you just basically go into the strategy tester, you go into the visual mode here, and then start out with the default settings and just add the limit orders here on true. Place the limit order distance maybe 5 to 10 pips, and then just see how it works. And then you will understand how the mechanism is behind it. Then another very cool feature is the valid range. So this one, you can find it here. Valid range for entry signal. Default is 20 pips, as it was always. But what we saw from our tests and from our observations is that when we have higher volatility in the markets, for example, now with the US presidential elections, we had very big moves in terms of pips. It makes sense to have a little bit increased range because the mechanism behind the entries, how it finds valid entries, is also based on how much range it has in the direction it wants to take the trade. So default is 20 pips. So that means that the market is moving on average a little bit less. So you will have, it's still a good range to have, but with high volatility, it's too sensitive, it's too small to have 20 pips. So there, it could make sense when there is higher volatility to use like 30 to 40 pips range. And testing the last years, I could also see that it is performing pretty well. It obviously takes less trades because it is more, it searches for a bigger range, which is not that often that you find in the market. So also this feature, I would recommend you to test it out. And as I also already explained in Discord, I will provide some new set files, some new presets with all these new settings. And so you can basically see the backtest, you can see what are the settings, and then you can choose which one you like more. So yeah, coming to the last feature, it's the moving average entry and exit system. So in this example, you can see it pretty well. So we have two moving averages, in this case, exponential moving averages. We want to take sells only if the faster moving average is below the slower one, and to the contrary, only buys if the faster is above the slower one. So we basically, for example, here we have two valid sell signals because the faster moving average is below. And here again, the same thing. Now for the exit system, what would happen here is, let's say you take this sell here, but it doesn't come to take the profit. So it reverses and it comes up here. Here at this crossover, it would close the trade if you have the exit signal on. So basically, when going down to the settings here, if you're using, oh, wait just a moment. Okay, if you're using the use MA exit, then it would consider this as a valid exit signal because the moving average crossed. So the faster crossed the slower one. Here, what I recommend is, because we always trade on the 30 minutes time frame, I would recommend to use a smaller time frame to check this condition, because the market can change pretty fast and it makes sense to be a little bit more sensitive to this type of signals based on this indicator. So yeah, this would be it. These are all the features. I hope I was clear enough. I know my English is not the best. I'm a little bit rusty, but yeah, either way, I hope I could explain everything well. If you have any question, just feel free to reach out, to open a ticket, or to write into the Discord chat, and we will be very happy to help. And if you need any other clarification, if something is a common question, maybe I will do a new video about it. And yeah, I hope you have fun with the new version.